What's good, y'all? It's Noir Tapes back with another video. Today I wanted to discuss some of the methods I use to flip these really old samples that I love to flip. I often use a lot of samples from Noir films. That's like part of my namesake. And the audio quality can start to really degrade with these old sounds. So it's important to know how to modernize them and make them fit in with new and digital sounds, right? So I wanted to go over a few tips. Nothing crazy in this video. I'm not going to go too in depth. I have to, save a bit for myself. I can't give you everything, but I can tell you a few tips, and maybe I'll cover more in the future. So this is my first time doing any sort of face cam video, so hopefully this works out all right. I'm just recording my camera here, and then I've got the screen up, and it should be recording the screen right now. So we should be good to give it a crack. So first, I actually pitched this sample down, but I'll play the sample as it was without warping. This was a short cut from a longer piano solo in an old film that I watched. It was a really nice film too. And so what I did while I was looking for the sample, because I wanted to make a beat out of it ultimately, I pitched the whole piano solo down a lot and listened for loops. So this is what I came up with here. I pitched it down 10 and I was left with this loop. And so I really like the way that sounded. The way it's set up at the moment, it would probably lend more towards like a trap beat or a funk beat, but I'm going to warp it real quick and move it on time. So the first thing I wanted to say when cleaning up these samples, you'll notice as soon as I pitched it down, it already sounded a bit better. That's because the digital noise that's on top has been pitched down as well. So you don't really notice the digital noise as much as you would have previously at a normal tempo, right? I also use some warping in Ableton to fit it on time, so it's going to sound a bit different now as well. But the first method I'd use to clean up a sound like this, it would depend on the situation. If you're just going to use the sample as it is, pull up an EQ and remove the lows because they sound muddy unless you're trying to use the bass in it. This high area up here is where the digital noise will be. This sample is actually not too bad. It doesn't have a disgusting digital noise at all. So I'm alright with that. So I like the way that sounds already. I'm just going to drop in a drum loop just to make the beat. And then I'll approach the second method in a second. The second idea I wanted to talk about is using Noir samples or old samples that don't sound great, using them as layers, right? So what I do to turn these sort of samples into layers is use an EQ to eliminate a lot of the frequencies and just capture a specific section of the sample. And I love to add a bit of reverb and delay just to transform the sound from a sample into a layer in a beat, right? And doing it this way takes away the attention from the sample. So it doesn't necessarily clean up the sound as much as it does turn the sample into something that goes in the background and takes attention away. So you won't notice the degrading quality. So let's do that here. So I still want to keep the beat full, right? And I could go find another sample to use, like chords or something. But in this case, I decided just to take the quicker route and add a filter to the original sample that I was using there. And now I'm going to duplicate the layer and filter those little piano notes and turn them into layers on top of the filter layer. And so what I did to turn this into a second layer, I listened to the sample after I restricted the frequencies to just the high end, and I decided that I liked the sound of the first note in each half of it, right? In the first bar and the second bar. And so I just cut the sample just to have those first notes, and then I made sure the frequencies were restricted, and I actually added a little bit of bit crushing just to give it some more high end, and I added a delay with ping pong effect to turn it into a completely different sound. So if I just solo it now, this is what it sounds like. And so if I play that above the filtered sample, you can hear it now. And now I'll introduce the drums again. And so you can hear once I did that, you really don't notice the digital noise anymore. The sample doesn't sound old anymore. It sounds quite modern. And it turns into a really unique and interesting layer. But yeah, so I just want to give you guys a few tips with that. When you take these old samples, make sure you think about how you're using them in the beat. And if you're using them as layers, you can really hide them in the beat and sort of turn them into ear candy, essentially. You know, make them quite unique and in the background. If you're just looping the sample by itself and it still sounds old, definitely use an EQ, clean up some of the noise and the muddy bass, and emphasize the parts you like. Right, hopefully you learned something. Anyways, have a good day, everyone. I'll see you next time.